Hello everyone. As you can see, I'm currently donned in my fireproof suit, which can only mean one thing. Yesterday we're going to be doing some welding. But no, we're not going to be welding the arches on the Renault, although they do desperately need doing. Before I tackle that job, I do need to have a bit more practice at welding thinner metals, because most of my, learnings of welding at the minute has been on thicker metals. So, a bit of a different technique, but just need to get my head around it a little bit more before I even tackle a job like that. But what we are going to be doing today is just some generic, general jobs even, just to help tidy up the garage. You see, I've got a couple of things which I'll do with hanging up on the walls and just generally placing in certain areas in the garage which I currently don't have brackets for, so I'm going to be making some brackets for things. But also I'm going to be making a little trolley for my welder, so it just makes it a little bit easier to move it around the garage. So let's crack on with it. Let me introduce you then to my welder. This is a Clark Weld 100E. Other welder brands are available, and this one I believe dates from roughly around the 1980s, possibly 1982, 85, somewhere in that region anyway. I got this one from a colleague at a previous job who at the time I was quite interested in learning to weld, and they said, hey, I've got an old welder in my garage, I'd rather see someone make use of it. So I ended up having it off them. So thank you very much, Michael. Very, very useful indeed for jobs like I'm going to be doing today. But yes, other brands of this kind of thing are available. I believe the equivalent of this welder nowadays, if you look on popular purchasing sites such as Amazon and other ones like that, I believe the equivalent price of this today is about £330 if you want to go out and buy one like this yourself. Other ones are cheaper and things like that, but if you want a good quality one, always buy one that's a bit more expensive basically. But the plan is with this, although this is not particularly heavy as such, I mean I can lift it like that. It's not the easiest angle to lift from here, but when you're standing up as you should be, it's not too difficult to move around and things like that. But I'm a man who likes convenience and ease and things like that in the garage and workshop and whatever. So the general plan is for this is what I've got over here are some little angle iron sections. There's literally only 4 of them, 2 long ones, 2 short to make a rectangular shape, as you can see just to the side of the camera. So what the idea is, just place this inside that, and then you have a little trolley. So there's not much more to it really. But the thing is, I've had these already cut down to a rough dimension, but there is a bit more trimming left to do. So let's get on with trimming it. The easiest way to actually find out what exact size this needs to be is to actually locate this inside of it. But before I can do that, I need to take off these little stubby legs. Now, all they are is just little bits of rubber, and they just held with self-tappers screws. So let's just take them off. There we go. You wouldn't get much better than that in an F1 pit stop, would you? As you can see, just to the left of your screen, the clock that I welded in the previous welding-based video, it has suffered a little bit of an accident since that video went out, but never fear. All I need to do is just grind off the old welds and just re-weld it back on. Not too much of an issue. But looking at the welder tray, or trolley, whatever we want to call it at this point, this is how it's going to go together. We've got the 2 side bits just overlapping onto these. I'll sort of grind the edges off these just to smooth them off and things like that later on. But for now, this is our base of it. So how is this going to work? It's quite simple. We just lift this up. I told you it wasn't particularly the heaviest item in the world. So in terms of width, apart from the fact this is just slid because of this little earthing cable here, I'm going to have to cut off a little bit of area just down here for that to actually sit in properly. But in terms of the overall width, that's pretty much what it needs to be. As for the back, however, there's quite a bit of excess on this, so the 2 sides do need to be cut down by quite a little bit. In fact, I've got my tape measure here. Let's find out how much they need to be cut down by. About 100 mil. So it's quite a lot, but these were just bits of scrap that I had, that someone at the place where my dad works had, and he said, hey, these are just scrap bits, you can have them. And these were just the rough sizes that they came in. Luckily 2 of them were right, so just need to cut these 2 side bits down by 100 mil. That seems pretty straightforward so far, doesn't it? And that is now 2 pieces cut down to the correct size. I know they look smaller from this angle, but trust me, they are the right size. I have just checked off camera. So the next stage then is making sure we get the gap where the earthing cable needs to go through here correct. So what we're going to do is put that there, lift this up like it would be in final practice, and then we just have a look and see whereabouts it is. So it's in this area here, so just going to make a little gap either side just to make a point. Try and make it maybe the width of the actual end of it, just there. Bear in mind this is only rough, I can cut it down even further if I wish later on. But yeah, that's the area that needs to be cut out of this, so I suppose we should just get on with that. I drilled a hole into the metal first of all, but discovered that the drill that I had for it wasn't large enough, and it was pretty much the largest drill I had that would actually be suitable for the job. So to help this, I decided to use the angle grinder and cut it out little section by little section, which seemed to work rather well. After spending many fun minutes with the angle grinder cutting out the hole to the correct size, it was time to file it down and smoothen it all off so that the earthing cable wouldn't chafe on any of the sharp edges that had just been left. If you look at that, that is right where it needs to be. I'd call that a job well done. Not weld done, we're not done with that yet. So the next step I've got to do is basically just grind away some of the excess on this stuff to reveal bare metal. Because when you're welding, if you don't have bare metal, it's not going to work as good as it should do. But one quick note, these little magnets, they're brilliant for doing corners and things like that. The ends of the metal are now shiny and smooth, which will provide us with an opportunity to get the best possible weld on them, which is absolutely fantastic. But to stop the rust from getting in quickly at least, because obviously I have now exposed the metal in its entirety right on the ends here, we're going to be using some of this stuff, zinc galvanized weld through primer. This one's made by Frost. As always, other brands are available. And basically, because these are going to be overlapping, where they don't quite meet, there's the opportunity for condensation to get in and obviously rust it. And I do realise, although this is quite thick metal, 3mm, it's going to take quite some time to get through, and of course it can be kept inside the majority of its life, never really going to go out into the wet. Rust is never a good thing to have on metal, so what we're going to do is use this weld through primer and give it just a little bit of a coating, which should help protect it against rust. And there we go. Now we just let that dry for a bit. I would say if this was going to be used outside, I'd be maybe a little bit more liberal with the primer, but because it's just going to be kept indoors, I'm quite happy just to spray it on there in a thick coating. This here is my spare mini bonnet. This came with the Mini when I bought it, and this was actually the original bonnet that came with it from factory, but when the front end needed replacing on the Mini, the previous owners decided they'd replace just the whole thing. So we've still got a reasonably good bonnet. However, there's not really anywhere in the garage to keep it, so I've decided I'm going to try and mount it on the wall to keep it out of the way of things, because you will have seen it previously on my workbench, which, let's face it, a workbench is for working, not for leaving your spare bonnet. So what I've done is created some little brackets for the wall, whilst the welder tray bracket, angle iron, whatever you want to call it, whilst they've been drying from the primer, I've been making some brackets for the wall for this. So what you can see just here are my 2 wall mounts. So the idea is they just go on the wall, drill hole through, well, already got the hole drilled, but drill through into wall, attach those. Job's a good one. But firstly, what we need to do is attach these on. Now, the idea with these is, this is a very simple little 40 by 40 mil shape. They're literally just a square, smooth edge, just make it easy for manoeuvring it when it's on the wall. But well, the idea is just literally put those on there and weld them on, and that should hold the bonnet up quite nicely and strongly on the wall. I will say, with the size of these, this is a 40 by 40 mil square, as I said, with just a little curve put on, and this is 40 by 30. So if you want to make these yourselves, if you've got skills in welding and angle grinding and many other skills like that, and you want to find a place to hang your bonnet for your Mini, those are the sizes I'm using for this. We are on day 4 now, and I haven't done any filming of this today because today's been a repeat of previous days' progress. You get more cutting and more welding. You can see what I have been up to though. I have made this little handle for it out of an old tube, which was a fireman's pole type thing, which was on my old climbing frame when I was a small boy, but it has unfortunately seen better days and corrosion got the better of it, so now it has been made into the handle for my little welding trolley, and yeah, it's pretty sturdy and strong. It's now cold, just handed it down ready to be painted. Not too worried about necessarily using fine grit sandpaper. I used 80 grit because it's only going to go into the garage anyway and you're hardly ever going to see it, and I'm not that fussed about the neatness of it, as it were. But if it was something like a car panel, I would take that extra time, but this isn't a car panel, so I'm not going to. But yeah, I think overall it's turned out pretty well. The only thing left to do now is to give it a little bit of a coat of paint, and for that we're going to be using some black paint. This is what we're using: Hammerite Direct to Rust Metal Paint Smooth Black. Always a satisfying noise. And now finally finished after about 5 afternoons worth of work. Not full afternoons, of course, some days were longer than others. But yeah, it's finally finished. It's got the wheels on, front and back. Of course, these were the wheels I bought for the scooter, which were quite a little bit wrong, but I've made use of them here. This, made out of my old climbing frame little fireman's pole type thing, which is now fitted on, just welded on quite like that. It looks good. I'm rather pleased with that. And nice and sturdy and strong. Pull, push, runs smoothly as well on, as you can see here, sawdusty carpet, and also on concrete and tarmac as well. I will admit, these are not the neatest welds I've ever done, and anybody who's a professional welder will probably think, that's rubbish. But in terms of the purpose they're being used for, it's strong enough. And as for the little gap just here where the cable for the earthing is supposed to go, for that I've bought just some of this little tubing just here, which is going to go around it and make it all look nice so that the cable doesn't end up chafed and not get a full circuit. So yeah, it's all coming together. This still needs to be fitted on properly, but for now it's just sat on. It's doing its job like so. The wheels fit on rather simply. These are just welded on. Did end up grinding away some of the galvanised material, but they've just been sprayed in Hammerite black. Other colours are available, of course, but I thought utility black would work rather well with this. As for the rear wheels, just used the little offcuts as we've seen earlier. Little offcuts from this, so they've been repurposed to make the little stands for the wheels to mount onto, and they do a superb job of that. You've seen me do a couple of jobs on this in previous videos, but this here is my workbench, just located right at the back of the garage, well, obviously behind the cars, and over the recent weeks it has been taking shape as well. Got a little light up there, magnetic little strips for tools to stick onto, and as you can see they are pretty full now. The box is full of car-based things, and my little wheel clamp as well for when I go away places and don't want to leave the Mini unclamped. Yes, I'm that paranoid about it. But yeah, little shelf here, custom made to fit. Everything slides out quite nicely. It's a little bit of a tight fit, but it works quite nicely. But look, the most important thing is the welder. That fits in its slot just here at the back quite nicely. Quite a bit of room as well. And if you see there, the handle just fits below the wood of the bench. I would call that a full-on win. But also, I have made use of an old wine rack to put some extra welding gas bottles onto. The little slots down there are, if I just move this old Sprite bottle, not sponsored, this old Sprite bottle, you can see there's a few empty spaces which I'm sure I'll make use of in the future, but for now they're going to remain empty. But yes, this whole thing has basically been made up of recycled material essentially, with the bench coming from the shed which was previously not being used. The wood on this was previously an old computer desk, which again was no longer required and it started to bow and things like that. Old wine rack there for the gas bottles, and scrap bits of metal which came from where my dad works, which yeah, they've become now a welding trolley, so I'd call this all a pretty big win. Let us now catch up then with the mini spare bonnets, wall mount brackets, whatever you want to call them. This is them in a testing stage before I had to do any final adjustments or spraying in this case. And in terms of how they work overall, I'm pretty happy with them. They're not too big, they're not too bulky. They fit rather nicely in place, they hold it all level. I can actually lift it up using these end pieces which I have welded on, so it's fit for purpose, it's strong enough. So all I've got to do on these now is just spray them. Probably going to do them black like the welding trolley because I've got still a little bit of that left, so I may as well use it all up. Not that you're going to see it behind this anyway. Then the idea is screw these to a wooden batten and then screw that to the wall for easy, easy access to take it off and put it back on again. But with this, obviously it's a spare bonnet and you don't need to be reaching up and down off the wall every 2 minutes for a spare bonnet. But when it's, well, when needed, basically, if I need to take it to get resprayed, which if I do ever get the Mini, which is just sat pretty over there, out of focus, but there we go. If I ever get the Mini fully resprayed, as it will do at some point in its life, but for now it's pretty good. But one day, when that does happen, I'll probably take this off and get it resprayed at the same time so it's all the same colour. So, all rather useful, and it's quick and easy fitment because all I've got is just 2 little bolts. Little screw fixing on there. Having to focus, this is getting a bit annoying. One little screw sort of end there, and then you just got a little nut on that side, and that's enough just to hold it. And of course, the best thing about it is I haven't had to drill any new holes into the bonnet to make that happen, because it just uses the original bonnet hinge mounts. Excellent. And here is the final finished article, and it looks really good up on the wall. It's all out of the way as well, which means nobody's going to knock it or dent it or have anything fall on it or even knock it over, which is absolutely what I wanted from it. Yes, hanging it on the wall I think was a rather good decision. These are the bits you can't really see because the bonnet obviously covers it up, but as we can see here, wooden batten with the little brackets screwed to them, and then those just bolt into the original bonnet holes for the obviously original bonnet hinges. It's a very simple design, but it works. And at this point, we're a couple of days later from when I did my previous update on this, but it's not fallen off yet, so I'm going to call that a rather large success. With the bonnet mounted up on the wall looking rather good, and of course the little welding trolley fully finished and operational, I think that kind of brings a close to this week's shenanigans, as it were. I think it's certainly been a large success, and although you can't really see behind the bonnet at the minute, I think the end result of it is rather good. It certainly serves its purpose, and as I've already mentioned, this is strong enough. So if you have enjoyed watching this welding based video, please consider leaving a like, Comment down below, do you like this sort of thing? What do you think? Has it been useful? Has it maybe inspired you to have a go at your own projects? Let me know down in the comments below. And of course, if you want to see more things like this and obviously more automotive content, feel free to subscribe. It's free. So until the very next video guys, I shall say farewell.